Hello and welcome to Your Call here on fecttv.com. We're live this evening. I'm Noel Byrne and tonight we're discussing the future of Irish politics. Is it in safe hands? Joining me this evening is our very own Fect TV writer and presenter Chris Bennett, as well as Una Lordan from Labour and Derek Daly of Fianna Fail. Thanks a million everyone for joining us. This should be an interesting debate tonight. Remember, if you do want to get involved as well, we do welcome your opinions and thoughts. You can give us those on Twitter at FectTV or indeed on Facebook as well if you just check out FectTV on there. I suppose, lads, to begin, and I'm going to come to you first. Why have you chosen Labour? And the reason I'm coming to you first, I suppose, is you used to be a member of Fianna Fail,
yes,
but now you're in Labour. So why the change?
Well, to be honest, you know, at 18 you're very young and naive, and like lots of people do crazy things when they're 18. Like some people take cocaine, some people take heroin. I joined Fianna Fail, so I've learned a lot about myself since then, and I've grown up. And I found, like last year, I was looking at parties, and I looked at all of the parties that are in the country, and I think, you know, the divisions, like say, I think most parties, the major ones, are based on civil war politics, and I think really it's time to move on. You know, I think we need a right and left divide in Irish politics. I care about equality issues. Labour, I picked Labour. Labour were the most liberal, in my view. They promote women, which, like if you look at Fianna Fail, they don't have any women in the at all. And having been in Fianna Fail, I felt that I would like to be in a party that does recognise the role of women in politics. And also, like on LGBT rights, all sorts of liberal type. I would consider myself quite liberal, and also on social.
You're British going back.
Also, well, I've been asked as recently as last week by people in Carrigaline at Christmas Eve, like, would I come back? So that's not. Yes.
Do you mind me asking, why did you leave Fianna Fail? You've told us why you joined Labour, but why you abandoned Fianna Fail? Was it a sinking ship, or?
Well, that's what people are going to say. Like, people are going to say that. Like, I mean, there's nothing I can do about that. I can only tell you how I felt and the truth as I perceived it. The way I would see it, when the IMF came into the country, I was actually secretary in the constituency at the time, okay. And I was on the National Youth Committee. But I felt totally betrayed, like the rest of the Irish public. I felt totally betrayed by Fianna Fail. Like I spent years listening to Micheál Martin and believing what he said, and like that was obviously my own naivety in that sense. And so did the rest of the country. Like, we were all like the whole of the Irish public were voting them in year after year, and like I felt like. Anyway, I felt totally betrayed. Then there was other issues, I suppose, when you begin to question the party you're in, other issues kind of come to the fore, and I ended up leaving the straw that broke the camel's back then would have been, I suppose, their attitude towards how in the local where I was in relation to LGBT rights and equality, and that would have been, I suppose, the final straw for me.
You didn't have the same stance as Fianna Fail in that area. Derek, coming to you, Una's kind of, you know, give Fianna Fail a good slate in there, I suppose, and a lot of people watching would agree. Why are you a part of a party that many would say ran this country into the ground and killed it?
I suppose you could say it ran the country into the ground and killed it, but over the past 6-7 decades, Fianna Fail has been at the forefront of progress in the Irish public. Like issues such as education has been always to the forefront, and still is. With Fianna Fail, it's one of the priority areas that it said it would focus on if re-elected. However slim the chances were in 2011, and I do believe that to be actually true. When you look at the issues mentioned in terms of equality, I suppose you need only look at the last cabinet to see how many women were in that compared to the current cabinet. And you can see where the priorities lie for the parties in terms of gender balance. I suppose the main reason I joined was when I was a teenager, and it's kind of a sad teenager, that I was writing emails to TDs, and all 5 TDs in the constituency, and I suppose the only ones that got back to me were the Fianna Fail TDs, and they took the interaction on board, and they pushed it up the line, and you could get responses. And that wasn't even, like, I didn't even get acknowledgements from the other TDs. So I suppose my initial instinct came from these were the people that were listening to me, as opposed to anything else. And then as I got more involved, you did see that there was apparent a disconnect between those who are running the country and those who are in the party. But I think that's kind of, there's an awful lot of healing going on at the moment with Micheál Martin, and I do feel that you can achieve an awful lot more from the opposition benches with a party that's renewing itself, as I suppose Fine Gael would say they did the same in 2002 after they lost a huge pile of seats. It gave them an opportunity to bring new people in where people had been unseated, and that opportunity is there for Fianna Fáil as well at the moment. And I think there is an awful lot of youth and diversity within Fianna Fáil at the moment that's interested in not only running for election, but also being part of the backroom team, which I think is one of the more important things in political parties, actually getting involved in your community in the background, even if you have no electoral
Are you finding it, I suppose, are you finding it difficult to convince people that, you know, the leopard has changed its spots?
I don't think the spots ever changed fundamentally. I think some people who were at the top of the party decided that the spots didn't suit them. I think the spots were always the same. Just some people weren't.
Who are the ones that? I mean, do you mean Brian Cowan and Brian Lenihan and Bertie Ahern, or was there backroom staff that you're alluding to?
Not, I wouldn't have said backroom staff, because the role of the backroom staff is essentially to administer the party, not to make up the policies. I do think that Brian Cowan was given a poison chalice, and I do honestly believe that he was a man who felt very despondent by the position that was presented to him. But that said, there was an awful lot, I'd agree with Una, that an awful lot of us felt left down when the IMF came in, and particularly when you see people like Noel Dempsey and Dermot Ahern that were sent out in front of the cameras. They weren't even sent out. They honestly didn't know what was going on, and they said there was no bailout, honestly believing that was the case. And I think it's ridiculous that 3 to 4 people could hold that back from the people who are charged with collectively running the country.
In terms of the involvement of young people in politics today, I mean, a lot of people are just driven away from it now. They have no interest. Chris, you've still got some stats in terms of recent polls.
There was a poll by the Sunday Times, Millward Brown, last week, which sort of basically painted this picture of Ireland of this sort of a fear and anxiety, a bit of disillusionment. Within the poll, people were given 7 options for various coalitions. 22% of them rejected them outright, and another 22% said they just didn't care, basically. They had no real opinion on it. Now, as well as that, you know, a third of voters, only a third, are confident that the current coalition is going to serve its full term. There is, I suppose, this disconnect between the young people there who I see as quite apathetic, shall we say, towards politics in general. And obviously people like yourselves, you know, young people who are highly motivated and highly passionate about you know, your politics. I suppose the question is, how do we get these people re-involved in politics, and even can it be done?
If you want to look at how you engage people in politics, you've got to make it about what they're interested in. Say, for example, if you're interested in music, and a lot of people, the issue, like the copyright issue, the most recent one with Sean Sherlock, would have aggravated an awful lot of people. There was a huge amount of political activity around that people didn't consider political. And even if you don't consider it political, it is actually getting involved. And I think those people who did take that issue on board should look at getting involved in politics, because ultimately everything can be influenced on a national level by legislation. And if you have any issue at all whatsoever, be it sports grants, whatever, you should get involved in a political party, whichever one it may be. I think I'd encourage anybody to join any political party.
Do you think a lot of this disillusionment comes, though, because people feel let down by politicians, by politics? They feel that if they are passionate about something, if they do go out on marches, if they do go out on protests, their views aren't heard, nothing's done about it.
Can I respond there to your earlier?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would completely reject what you're saying about young people being disconnected and not interested in politics. I think you're doing them a huge injustice. There is so many young Irish people who are people from other immigrants as well, who are active in the community, active in politics. I mean, active citizens, like out training, even training your local GAA team would be, in my opinion, is being active in your community, which is important. But
well,
I just wanted to talk about
active in politics is something completely different.
If you were up, I was recently a participant of President Michael D. Higgins' Being Young and Irish consultation, which they had 4 consultations around the country. I was at the Cork one, and then I was selected to go to the national one in the Oris. And like the energy in that room that day of young people who wanted to change things, wanted to make a difference.
But a lot of those people would have been people who had an interest in politics anyway.
No, they weren't. No, there was lots of kids, there was secondary school kids at it. They were
secondary school kids can have an interest in politics.
They have an interest in politics, but like. You're not going. If you're not interested, but if you're not interested in politics, you can't force that on someone. But there is a huge, like, if you're not interested in football, you can't force that on someone. But there are young people out there who are interested, but a lot of them don't know how to get involved.
But do you think the problem? I sort of agree with that, but don't you think the problem is not that we need to do more to get these people involved? That it's the people who are in politics at the moment need to do more to stop people being, I suppose, disillusioned by them.
Yes, I would agree. Like the political parties, I think the biggest problem, like if you look, like I think the biggest problem is like if you're a member of a political party, it's very, very easy, especially like if they're in government, they lose track of the membership. They don't listen to the membership.
Is that what Labour have done now?
Definitely.
Do you think the party you're a part of has kind of lost connect with?
Absolutely, total disconnect by the people at the top of the cabinet and the people. If you look today,
why would you say something like that and yet stay a member?
Because I want to change it. I'm here to bring forward. I've nowhere else to go at this point. Jesus. But like, if you look, Colin McKeevan made a statement today. He's been very, very good as a chairperson. He has it's the first time I've been involved in political parties now since I was 18. I took about a year gap, and he's the first chairperson who has, after the budget, consulted the entire membership, got their feedback, went back, gave that to Eamon Gilmore, and also they're trying to. He's calling for a national conference now in April. I don't know whether that will happen, but like we are being ignored. It happens in Fianna Fail. It happens in every party. I just want to say one more thing. I would be the Equality and Women's Officer in Cork South Central, and there was a motion at the last conference from Cork South Central, which was that in 6 months' time the membership want to hold another conference and review their position in government and whether they want to continue. And that was pushed to the end of the agenda. The person who had submitted that was encouraged to withdraw it. It was all then pushed to the end of the agenda, we ran out of time at the conference to discuss that motion, and that is a total disrespect for people who are members of political parties who have put in their time and travelled up the country to go to a conference.
Okay. Do you think then in that case that Labour needs to essentially sort of have a fall similar, I suppose, to Fianna Fail there, when you said that there was a disconnect between the leadership and the people below, and it took sort of you to essentially fall out of government, fall out of grace with the people, to then rebuild and build again that disconnect? Do you think something like that is going to happen with Labour?
I would hope so, to be honest. I would hope so.
I do think there's one quite unfortunate side effect of that, is that those who tend to be lost in the cull tend to be the most recent additions to the fold, who are most concerned with listening to the members. And
so the old crew stay on.
They tend to be able to get re-elected.
Derek, can I ask you a question in terms of, when countries find themselves in situations like our own, in like recession driven economies, and like the likes of Greece, where parties that really, they almost seem like new Nazi parties. Do you think in Ireland, with the country the way it's in, that other new parties might emerge that kind of will be more extreme, whether it's extreme left or extreme right? Or do you think, like in the future, it is still going to be a case of you'll have your Fine Gael, your Fianna Fáil, Labour, Sinn Féin, they'll be the main kind of...
I don't think the Irish people are very fond of extremism. Even, like we have a history of rejecting extremism, and even when the whole of Europe was falling to extremism, we didn't, and it was just, I think there's something inherent within the Irish electorate that it probably just doesn't trust anything at all, but they'll go for what can do the least damage. And
I suppose isn't that to your detriment that you're having sort of the same old thing year after year after year, you know, in terms of you vote for the same party as your father, your grandfather, your great-grandfather, and nothing changes?
I wouldn't rule out new parties, but I think, for example, had the PDs survived 2007, they could have done quite well in 2011 as one of those parties that would have actually had kind of a policy platform as opposed to a political following.
That's fair enough. Don't forget, if you want to join in this evening's conversation, you can do so on Twitter. @FectTV is the username there. Just looking at our Twitter feed, Pauline Byrne has been on. She said Una left before the IMF came into the country, March 2011. IMF didn't come in until October 2011. That's not why she really left. That, I suppose, leaves a question hanging there. And then another tweet from Dee McCann says, Labour are for women. In their 100 years, they have only ever put 2 women in the cabinet. I suppose picking up on the second tweet there in terms of women's involvement in politics, gender quotas are all the rage at the moment in political parties, and I suppose if they don't field enough candidates in the next general election, their funding isn't going to be as strong as they'd want. Derek, do you think gender quotas are a good idea or a bad idea to be kind of, as such, as some would see it, forcing women into politics?
I'm not a big fan of gender quotas, to be honest. I do think there have been some very strong female politicians who have gotten there on their own merit, and I think I'd like to see 50% female politicians getting there without the quota, or 60 or 70, because at the moment, like myself and Una, we were talking about this before we came on, about how 85% of the Dáil is male, and that's even worse than the last Dáil. So you've got a situation, I think, whereby I wouldn't be in favour of gender quotas, but I do think that there is possibly an argument that if they were introduced for a period of 10 years, it may right the balance and then they could be scrapped.
Do you think it might be a case of women just aren't as interested, or maybe women aren't as good a candidate, so that's why people aren't electing them?
I think people look at the I love the stares I'm getting. I don't think it's that they're not as good a quality. I think it's just that when you look at around the rooms around the country, if you look at any political party, the people who are selecting the candidates tend to be predominantly male, and that leads to males being selected, although there are some significant exceptions, the likes of, well, they would have come from political dynasty families, the likes of Olwen Enright, Mary Coughlin, Mary Hannafin, and you'd see them across and the like.
Yeah, Derek's right. 50% of females who have been elected to the Dáil are actually from male political dynasties.
Una, you seem itching there to come in on this.
No, I don't.
Come and bring us our opinion.
You're obviously, to a point, will disagree with what Derek said in terms of...
Because of the MAST, I'm the chairperson of Cork 50/50 group, which is the group which campaigned to bring in gender quotas.
But do you not see where people are coming from in terms of, if you have a quota, the parties are only putting forward women then just to get the money? As in, as Derek kind of said, is it not better to have women emerge
Organically?
Yeah, organically, and they'll come
better, yes.
to the Dáil as...
Will it happen? I don't think so.
Why not?
Look at the facts. Look at the facts. Like Fianna Fail, were trying to promote women the last time. They did have it on their voluntary, like their voluntary quota, as we call it. And look what happened. 20 men, no women. It's not going to happen. They're not going to, political parties, you're going to have to twist their arm. Like, I mean... But there's
twisting an arm, and then there's sort of artificially coming in and massaging figures, which is two different things.
If you want.
As well to factor into it.
Absolutely.
It's all about electoral choice. I want to like there were constituencies in the last election, and there was no woman on. You didn't have a choice. You couldn't vote for a woman, even if you wanted to.
If it's down to the electorate, then is it not a case of, like I've said,
the electorate
doesn't think the women are good enough then to be their elected representatives?
Doesn't select the candidates. You can't vote for a candidate that isn't on the ballot paper. And just one thing,
okay, go ahead.
If a woman and a man women and men are equally as likely to get elected. 15% of candidates last time were women. 15% of them were elected. Like gender quotas, you can give me all the arguments you want.
So 15% of 15%.
Sorry, 50%.
Oh, 50.
50%. No, sorry, no, 15% of 50% of candidates were women.
Okay.
85% were men. We ended up in a situation with 85% male elected and 15% So they have the exact equal chance of getting elected if they're given the opportunity.
But to go back to it, you said that sort of the main charge is there that it should come from the electorate, right? Which I absolutely agree with. If it should come from the electorate, and you're saying they don't get a chance to select the people, fair enough, then it's down to the electorate to then campaign for the parties, against the parties, to say, we want you to put women on the ballot.
And this is coming from someone who just said that there's a total disconnect and disinterest in politics.
I agree.
By the people.
Yeah, but what you're saying is...
how can you expect them to do that?
But how can you expect the people then to come back and have any respect for politics if you're coming in and bringing in an artificial quota which nobody has asked for except the politicians?
Politicians didn't ask for that.
That's completely ignoring people.
No,
And a huge amount of female politicians that did get elected in the previous Dáil, the likes of very able people like Olwen Enright and Liz McManus, would have been against gender quotas on the basis that they didn't require them to get elected. And if looking at the experience internally of Fianna Fáil, the most vocal opponents of gender quotas were women because they felt it devalued their election if they did get elected.
Or it was the fact that they felt that if they were campaigning for women's issues, that they would be seen to be promoting themselves, and that is why. And that you get that in the fire.
As like career women and...
Yeah, that it's all about us. Like, and also, like, I mean, you need to pave the way. Like, I mean, like, say we'll just hypothetically now, if I was Taoiseach in the morning, right? I don't want to be Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher changed nothing for women in politics. Nothing. I would prefer now, if there was, say, last election now, if you look at candidates such as...
that's highly debatable, whether Margaret Thatcher changed anything for women in politics.
That's paving the way.
That's pretty debatable.
I mean, fine.
Well, at the end of the day, you still have to have the first one. You still have to have the one who does lead the way. You can't say that Margaret Thatcher being, the first British woman Prime Minister was not a major step forward.
I wouldn't say that she was a good role model. Would be another aspect. But
okay, well, we're not here to debate Margaret Thatcher. Yeah. In terms of politics in Ireland, remember, if you do want to give us your opinions, you can do so on Twitter. Paul Ward, Una, I'm not sure if you know this person.
No.
They're kind of critical of your views on Twitter. They've said you are cynical, power-hungry and fair-weather supporter. I presume they're alluding to the Fianna Fáil change from Fianna Fáil to Labour.
I can only do what I do. Like, I mean, I'm not power-hungry. I volunteer my time freely. I'm involved in several organisations which are probably detrimental. Like, I'm a trainee accountant. I want to be an accountant. That's what I want to do.
Okay. In terms of the future, if you were to be Taoiseach at some point and you found yourself in a situation where you had to go into coalition with someone, is there a political party you would not go into coalition with? Derek?
I don't think you can rule anything out without seeing a programme for government and knowing who the people you're going into power with are. So, for example, if you could say right at the moment that
based on
Fianna
ideologies today, then
say that Fianna Fáil wouldn't go into government with the Socialist Party or Sinn Féin now, you could say that would be pretty much where you'd stand. But if you were to say that they wouldn't go into government with Sinn Féin in 60 years' time, if both parties had the numbers to go into government, would be it would be second guessing changes that may happen in either organisation in that time.
Okay, well, based on, we'll say, the thinking today, if someone was to turn around to go to you and go, you have to choose the political party who we have to go into government with.
If I had to choose one to go into government with, I would probably go back to the Green Party. I think they're probably the closest to where Fianna Fáil was.
Because you can kind of rule them easier than others.
No, I do think that their policies were quite similar in terms of where I'd like to see Fianna Fáil go.
Okay. Just to go back to the Twitter, Owen O'Neillon, I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. Gender quotas do nothing to tackle the issues. The 4 C's of care, childcare or otherwise, culture, cash and confidence. Sully Brazel, he says the IMF run this country now thanks to the high treason committed by the one previous government and this one. And he also says the illusion of democracy, it's choosing between Coke and Pepsi. Your system has sold us to the World Bank and globalists. They're kind of both angled at Fianna Fáil's failures.
Can I just come in on the Owen O'Neillon's comment there? The gender quotas there's 5 barriers to women in politics as research from Women for Election has shown. It's culture, cost, childcare, candidate selection, and I can't remember the last one. But candidate selection is what gender quotas is targeting, that is what it is doing. It is targeting candidate selection. It is making parties think we're going to have to select some women. It is targeting that exact one. Then we've got Women for Election who are targeting confidence. They're training women. And then we in 50-50 are hoping this year to focus on childcare and lobby for childcare, that barrier. So I just wanted to say that.
I do think if you want to choose a career in politics, like there are plenty of male politicians out there who serve in the Dáil and in government who would love to see an awful lot more of their kids than they actually do. And there were an awful lot of people who lost their seats in Fianna Fail in the last election that were delighted in kind of with the silver lining that they could actually spend time with their kids who they hadn't seen for practically 10, 12 months. They might see them maybe once a week, whereas other people who...
I know it's all nice and you get to see your family and all, but I mean, if you're getting into politics, you should kind of be aware you're kind of giving up your life, like you are the ultimate public servant.
That's the point of making it. It's not a barrier that exists solely for women. It exists across the board for everyone.
Okay.
Well,
that's a good point to
on
make.
that, like Phil Hogan was speaking recently at the book launch of the 50-50 group in Dublin, and he said, look, people always say it's such a terrible life. He said it's not that bad. You know, people only say that so that people won't run. He said it's not that bad. I mean, look, if you're an accountant and it's tax season, you don't get to see your kids either. Like, I mean, every job has its downfall. But I think if you're looking at that, like, if you want more women, or which like, I don't know if you do, if you don't, I don't know, what's your choice? But you need to look at the role of a politician and, like, is it a choice that women are making that they want to spend more time with their kids so they won't? Is that something, do we need to change the structure of the life of a politician in that? Could we have a list system where
it's a cultural shift that's required.
Absolutely.
Could we have a list, say, for one proposal I have heard, I'm not sure where I stand on it, is if we had a list system in place, then all TDs could live in Dublin and their kids could go to college and school and childcare and everything in Dublin, and they could see them every evening when they go home, like any other job.
A cultural shift is absolutely fine, and that should be the way it's going. And again, to go back to the quotas and that kind of artificial side of things, if you want to do something about it, change the culture. Don't essentially artificially put something in that says this is how you must do it, because that can only engender negative feelings.
We do have a global gender apartheid. I'm just going to put that out there. It's a fact. Look at it. Look at the statistics. We were comparing.
There's no way that that's going to be changed for the better with an imposition upon people.
There's nobody going out of their way to stop women getting on the ballot paper.
No, I suppose it's kind of difficult for them at the moment. But I feel like we've talked about gender quotas kind of a lot, and I just want to touch on a couple of things before we finish up and just get your thoughts in terms of where legislation might go in the future for Ireland. In terms of, we'll say abortion is a hot topic right now. Ye, as representatives of the parties ye are in, are your parties liberal enough to allow, we'll say, full-blown abortion with basically a woman, she could choose if she wants one or not, and it doesn't matter whether she's, there's a threat to her life.
Absolute free choice.
Yeah.
I just like to say I'm not speaking on behalf of the Labour Party. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I just happen to be a member of the Labour Party, and
cover your asses slightly.
I suppose they would be quite liberal. I don't know exactly where they stand exactly, to be honest. But I'm just sorry now for going back and forward. But there was I just saw there was several articles in the newspaper about from male TDs telling people on this issue, listen to your wives, daughters, and your mothers on this issue. Consult them. And I just think if there was more of us in the Dáil to discuss it, maybe we wouldn't have to be doing things like that.
Okay. Derek, do you think, will the politicians of the future be more liberal thinking and allow for such things? Assuming that is, of course, that the legislation that the current government bring forwards is quite restricted, which is what is expected. Do you think the politicians will be a bit more ballsy in the future? And
I think you can kind of see a trend emerging where there is a larger divide coming in politics where people are more set into one way or another, as opposed to being willing to compromise. And I do think that if there were to be proposals in the future for free and open abortion, I wouldn't see Fianna Fail supporting them.
You wouldn't?
No.
Okay.
I would think
I
that
suppose that's a dangerous thing,
there-
though, to say. I suppose
there's-
that political parties are hardening into these sort of right or wrong type of things,
There's-
black or white.
I think what would be required and is necessary at the moment is clarity, so that you don't have a situation whereby a doctor is letting someone die because they don't know if they're going to be prosecuted for helping them.
I'd just like to just express my own position. I'm pro-choice. I believe that a woman is in the best position to make those decisions for herself, and that no doctor, no anything. I think it's such a tough thing when you hear the stories from women who have had to, say, a woman now who has had to travel in terrible, say, people. I think it's a class issue. Abortion is a class issue. If you earn good money and you have the money, you can go, you can travel. This really is an issue for the working class and people dependent on social welfare, or who have big mortgages, or who really can't afford to go and get. Like if we're just kidding ourselves if we think that that not having an abortion, or that one in 15 Irish women has had an abortion. They're afraid to talk about it. Like we were talking about mental health. Like mental health is a big problem in this country. Like, but people have to travel and be secretive and say, but they feel that they have to. They say that because it's criminal. It's actually criminalised in this country. Like they have. Like getting buses and lying and saying they're going on a shopping trip and getting days off work. And they say, like I was talking to a woman from Doctors for Choice, and she was saying that the numbers are actually dropping for women travelling for abortions, and they also, the numbers are increasing for women who are importing the abortive pill illegally from places like off the internet, which is very dangerous. And she said she's working on the north side of Cork City, and she said she has dealt with a lot of women who have come to her in distress and have to be hospitalised after using this because they don't have the proper medical supervision. This is a women's health issue. Like, it's a very emotive issue. I understand that, but like, I mean, they're people, you know.
One of the, I suppose, reasons that the country is so restricted, I suppose, is because of the influence of the Catholic Church over the decades since always. Do you think, as the years go on, would you view the Catholic Church as becoming more and more separate? Do you think they're going to become less influential or more influential?
I don't know. I would hope that they would become less influential, but like, because I think they're giving too much of a voice on this issue. Like, they have a terrible track record. When you look at with children's and women's rights, look at the Magdalene laundries. I don't even know any should even say anything about children's rights, really, do I? They're given a voice. They're given a forum. They're on every TV show. You have the Iona Institute on. Like,
do you think that Ireland really needs to push, further with the sort of the separation of church and state, keep the church out of politics altogether?
The church shouldn't be commenting on issues with the expectation that it's going to be, its opinion is going to be heard above other people's. It should be able to comment equally.
It's going to be a voice that's going to be listened to less and less as the years go on.
I do think that it is being listened to less and less. Like, if you were to discuss something like this on TV 30 years ago, we'd probably be getting phone calls for the next 3 weeks saying that you're a disgrace for saying that the Catholic Church shouldn't be listened to in politics as much.
They've not done themselves any favours, put it that way.
No, and I think the Church is its own worst enemy in that regard.
I think while we have moved on from Noel Brown's era of trying to bring in the childcare bill and the mother and childcare bill, or whatever it's called, and bishops interfering and saying that it was communism, is I think we have moved on from that, but I don't know whether we've moved on enough, really. And I fear that with the recession, like, people are in bad situations, they turn to God, they turn to the church. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Certainly, to sort of slightly bring it back to the abortion debate, coming from the UK to see the abortion issue as it is here is a strange thing for me. Frankly, it doesn't make any sense, and you can see the sort of influence of the church in that. I mean, really, it would come down to it. If you are going forward and the influence of the church does wane, it would be something that, why not legalise it? If you don't believe in it, you don't have to do it. Don't ask, don't tell kind of thing.
I just, on that, I'm also a member of Cork Women's Right to Choose, and I was
busy.
Yes, yeah. I am very busy. See, but at a protest, I was at a protest. I've been a member for a number of years, but really the activity in that has really just only taken off really since the Savita Hannah case. I was at a protest on Patrick Street one night. This was my first second protest at it, and a priest came up and blessed us all. And then we went to another night. We had a night, a pro-choice night. We invited the public to go to this pro-choice discussion forum, and a woman anyway, we had holy water thrown at us, basically, and like we were called.
I think we're all agreed on the whole issue that the Catholic Church kind of, just needs to butt out a bit more, and they probably will as the years go on.
I would like to see them less involved in education.
I think people just want to see them less involved across the board in everything but mass. Just before we finish up, because we're running on a bit now, in terms of the, politics in Ireland, is it in safe hands? Do you think, going forward, in your own opinion, Derek, is the country, can the younger people today kind of relax in that, the politicians of the future are different to the ones we know today, as in the ones who ran it into the ground, i.e. the party you were a part of?
The last bit is an unfair comment, I think. But no, I do think that there is a more discerning politics coming about in Ireland, whereby there is an electorate out there that won't just believe anything it's told anymore. And I think probably two of the biggest culprits in that, and we have a lot to thank them for, are Rory Quinn and Phil Hogan. In the promises they made, and probably Eamon Gilmore as well with child benefit and not another red cent in Leo Varadkar and like that type of thing. People, I don't think, they weren't so much disappointed and upset that it happened. They were actually more pissed off that they were told it wouldn't happen, and then it did. And I think if politicians were more honest with people in the first place, they mightn't get as many votes, but people wouldn't be so pissed off when things actually transpired in the end, kind of.
Una, is politics in Ireland in safe hands?
No.
No.
If you think, I don't think there is a huge shift. I mean, realistically, the politicians of tomorrow, a lot of them are going to be the sons and daughters of the politicians of today.
Does that mean, I suppose, yourself would toe the party line, as it were?
Well, no, I was disgusted about the child benefit. It really was. I'm involved in the St. Vincent de Paul, and child benefit is they said it wasn't if there's any red line issue, as the buzzwords they were using, child benefit is a red line issue. It's and that's, what is it? It's the only universal payment which a lot of people get, people with mortgages, people with small children, people who have lost their jobs, people who wages have been cut, people who are being stretched and cut, and who can't afford to put fuel in their cars to go to work. Their child benefit has been cut. You're taking food from the mouth, it's like taking candy from a baby.
Is that then an issue that, when it's come down to it, and you strongly don't believe in it, would you then, if you were elected, if you were TD, for instance, say, I'm going to stand down over that?
Like Colm?
No.
The fact that they run...
No.
The fact that they ran on the basis that this wouldn't happen, and if you're elected on the basis that this would not happen. This is what you promised. You made a direct promise, and then broke it. I don't think Can I not explain my answer?
You can, but we need a sort of a quick answer.
I will, and well, you can have a slow one. You're after disrupting me now. It's taking me ages. If you run on an issue, if you run on a mandate, and you say, if I'm in government, if elected, I will do this, and you give it that definite, then if your party does the opposite, it is your duty. It is your duty as a politician to do what you say, to do what you said you were going to do. Like this Pat Rabbit stuff. I mean, my God.
So you would stand down.
I wouldn't stand down, but I'd vote the way I said I was going to vote.
Okay, you'd stick to your own.
Stick to your guns.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem. People keep selling out.
Okay, there you go. Mixed views on whether or not the politics of the future is in safe hands. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. That is it for tonight. It was a long and interesting debate. Thanks for watching, and we're back tomorrow on fecttv.com.